project. Up next, I would like to introduce you to Mzwakhe Mpofu. Mzwakhe is placed at the Jesuit Refugee Services, JRS, and his project is titled Refugee Rights and Documentation. Over to you, Mzwakhe.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Mr. Swana, and all the people involved.
Good morning, Mzwakhe.
Okay, thank you so much. I am, as Mr. Swana said, I'm Mzwakhe Mpofu. I was placed at JRS, that's the abbreviation for Jesuit Refugee Service. So basically what we do, we serve refugees and forcibly displaced persons, mostly from around Africa. So you find that we have clients coming from countries like DRC, Somalia, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, just to mention but a few. What JRS does, we advocate for the rights of refugees, be it healthcare, be it education, be it housing, anything else that you can think of. So as JRS as well, we also realize as the organization that we can as well extend the services not only to refugees and forcibly displaced persons, but also to most vulnerable groups like in society. And so the aim is to empower the disempowered. As I always say that we are trying to provide a home away from home for the refugees and the displaced persons. JRS comprises of three departments. That is the skills, the advocacy, and also the health department. And I was placed at the health department, so I was working closely with the health department. Moving on, after that, after doing the community profiling and also the needs assessment and trying to understand what are the needs and concerns like of refugees, I realized, of course, with the help of other refugee staff, that we need to come up with a program that educates refugees on refugee documentation, because there was a lack of education on such aspects. There was also lack of education on resources that can actually help them to actually access proper documentation and also other resources. But as I said, like after doing the needs assessment, we decided to narrow this community project on the healthcare sector. So we realized that refugees usually face difficulties when they're trying to access quality healthcare, maybe because they don't have proper documentation. Yeah. So and also we also realized that after such things happen, they don't really have the knowledge and the education to know where to turn to and who can help them. So so in such instances, if their rights are violated and they are not heard. So the idea was to educate these beneficiaries of JRS so that we can alleviate the ignorance and also empower them in terms of their rights. Yes. So the project was mainly centered on a workshop on refugee rights and documentation. But as I said earlier, it focused on it mainly narrowed down to the healthcare sector, because I felt like it was like the cause of concern. So I collaborated with the JRS health department, so that includes the management, the social workers, and also the caregivers. So all these three segments of the department were there to help me, and they offered maximum support to make sure that everything goes according to plan. So we invited speakers from Future Families and also Section 20 27 speakers. Basically, future families are almost do programs that are almost similar to JRS, that is psychosocial counseling, helping refugees as well to settle like in their new host country. And then section 27 is it's basically human rights lawyers, and they offer free services to refugees and also most vulnerable groups. Because of the language barrier, we also decided to include a translator, because most of our beneficiaries, they might struggle to understand English, and we realized that about 80% of the attendants were French, and so we were fortunate enough to actually come up with a translator who could actually translate English to French. Attendance was approximately 40 people. Our beneficiaries were also given the chance to ask questions. Beneficiaries were also asked questions thereafter, just to make sure that they understand what is being talked about, and also on the part of the presenters to also understand that the beneficiaries are getting the message, and what is the aim of the workshop. And as I said, aim was to empower, and I believe that as a social worker, is when someone is educated, when someone knows and is knowledgeable about something, they can have the courage to stand for their rights, and even if they are violated, they know the resources and who to turn to if ever their rights are violated. And I also thought that this was the most relevant workshop because of the nature of the impediment, because we realize that there is lack of knowledge and education on such aspects. So having to do such kind of a workshop will actually ensure that the refugee community can actually understand their rights, can actually know their rights, and are empowered enough to actually stand for their rights. Okay, I'm just gonna move into the project, the theory part of the project. Is my colleagues have been saying that as we do these projects, we will always make sure that we consider the guiding principles of social work, that is the developmental approach. So as the workshop coordinator, ensure that there's beneficiary participation throughout the workshop, that is making sure and giving them the chance to actually ask questions, giving the beneficiaries to also contribute in terms of future topics that should be covered, like in future, maybe in the following year, and also partnerships with future families is also one of the pillars of developmental approach, that when doing projects, we should partner with other institutions or even other resources. And also, workshop promoted universal access to refugees, which means that by making sure that refugees know about their documentation, and they can be able to access any resources in South Africa that can actually empower them, that can actually help them, especially in the health sector. After that, we also realized, because it came out to be like one of the best programs that JRS has ever had. So we are making sure that this such projects happen on a quarterly basis, because refugee continually has like beneficiaries every now and then, like new recruits. And so it was an idea that is still being considered to actually have such educational workshops, like on a quarterly basis, to continue to educate refugees every now and then. And then from there, I'm just gonna run through on the community-based group work, which focused on educating as well the participants. It was basically a spillover of the main workshop, which means that all the topics that were being covered in the group work were actually related to the workshop, and also that they will be able to choose their own topics if need be. If they want further assistance, they can actually schedule individual counseling if need be. Lesson learned, I also learned a lot on such a project, because I realized that global pandemics can actually affect service delivery, because we actually had to cut the number of attendants, because some were in contact with people with COVID-19, so we had to cut the numbers, because initially we're looking at attendance of like 70 people, but because of COVID-19 we had to cut the numbers, and of course all COVID-19 protocols were observed, and also the cohesion amongst refugees is commendable, from people coming from different countries with diverse background. It was just commendable. It's also commendable, like the support that I got from the health department at GRS. They were really supportive in terms of funding, in terms of making sure that everything goes according to plan. And I also realized that goals and objectives of a certain project tremendously affect like motivation on the part of the organizers, on the part of the funders, on the part of the beneficiaries as well. And I think in the future, I believe that time allocation for question and answer sessions should be increased, as I realized the refugees had like so many questions to ask, but because we're constricted of time, we couldn't cater for every question. And that's my poster for the project that I managed to create, that summarizes everything. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mzwakhe. Mzwakhe will be available on the chat section to take your comments and questions. Indeed, such a topical project, you know, refugees, they come to South Africa seeking for better future, for a better life, and for better opportunities. But because of the impediments that are caused by lack of access to documentation, they found themselves being subjected to secondary victimization. Indeed, we could see the flavor of the developmental approach in the project. Thank you, Mzwakhe, for such a wonderful project.